Good afternoon, Crystal. How are you, ma'am?
I'm good. And yourself?
I'm doing great. It's a good day to be me.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
So, um, hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. I know it was calm and restful and easygoing. And
Yeah, because it was just a Friday off.
okay, all right.
'Cause
Mine was a
I
lot
don't
of
think,
things, but none of those.
yeah, I don't think it would be called Independent Day anymore.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I guess it depends on who you're
Yeah, who
you're
you're talking
independent
to.
from. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
so.
That is an interesting way to put that. Um,
Yeah.
maybe something we can talk about after the show. That's a very interesting way to put that.
Yeah. Anyway, yes. How was yours?
Oh, it was fantastic. I've been telling folks I did everything to excess. I ate too much, drank too much, smoked too many cigars, stayed up too late. I did everything too much. And now I'm paying for it.
That's what happens when you do overdo certain things, huh?
Yes. But you
Yeah.
only, as my niece says, YOLO, right? You only live once.
You only live one time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, I did get some sleep, which was very, very important. And I
That
did get
is.
I visited some friends in Orange County.
Oh,
So
cool.
that
You
was
came
nice.
down to see us?
I was in Irvine.
Oh, all
Uh,
right. Yeah, that's just down the road.
on the 4th actually, and then I came back home later on. My friends, my friends from my girlfriend from South Africa lives in Irvine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so her
Did you get to
family.
see the fireworks down here?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
I left her house at 9:30, I guess, and then I got home about 10:30. I saw it on the way coming
oh,
back home from. But yeah, her brother was in from, and I hadn't seen him in a long time, from South Korea. They moved to Seoul,
hmm.
and so that was pretty cool. That I got to meet.
Yeah.
I got to see them. I hadn't seen them since 2009. He and his wife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then her mom was here from South Africa, so I got to see her.
The whole family. That's pretty cool.
Hmm. Yeah. So,
Good for
yeah,
you.
her sisters have been here during the time I was doing biz camp, so I couldn't go down there. So I got to see some portions of the family.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and I didn't overindulge. I wish I'd have overindulged in sleep because I had been for 3 weeks doing biz camp. I needed
Yes, but
sleep.
you never sleep anyway. I don't understand why you don't have like bags and stuff. Yeah.
Because I use a lot of face stuff.
Well, thank goodness for face stuff. It looks
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
thank you, thank you.
I
So, what are we
am,
talking about today?
well, I figured we would talk today about what happens to your 401k when you get deported. I know
Mm,
there's a lot of folks who, and I wasn't to your
let's go.
401k if you are an employee and you leave the country. And that could be because you just,
Okay, I don't know. Is that me or you?
oh, well, I think I came back.
Okay,
Are
you're
you not
back.
coming back?
Yeah, I'm back. Am I back?
You're not back. Oh, there you are. What was that?
I don't know. It just kind of tapped out. So yeah, what does happen to one's 401k? Because now we are eliminating U.S. citizens. So what does happen to one's 401k if one gets deported?
Yes, I thought we should chat about that for a bit. We've got 5 major points that I wanted to go over.
Okay.
And the first one I think is maybe the most important, actually, maybe the last one. It just depends. But the first one's really, really important. And that is the employee owns the account. But before we get into that, let me read your bio and
Mm-hmm.
introduce you properly. And
Okay.
then we will jump into this little topic here. So, hello everyone. Please help me welcome my friend and colleague Crystal Mitchell to On the Patio with Crystal and Jevon. Crystal is a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, a co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, the co-host of The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert, that other weekly radio show. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a certified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. Hey, Crystal, so glad you can make it and survived the 4th of July.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 5 things that HR folks should keep in mind. And by virtue of them keeping in mind, employees, folks who have 401k plans, definitely want to keep this in mind.
Okay.
And the first one, I sort of mentioned it before, but I think it's incredibly important. And that is that it's your money, as in you, the employee. It does not belong to the company. It does not belong to the federal government. No one can take it away from you, save of some sort of vesting program, but it is your money. So I know a lot of people think, oh, I had my 401k with Principal. They're hanging on to it. They've got it. No, that's not the way it works. And we'll get into that on number 5. But it is the employee's money. It can't be taken away from them. So what does that mean? That means we go over to point number 2, and we talk about, all right, what are they going to do with the money, right? Well, number 1, you can leave the money right where it is, right? We live in a global economy. So as long as you can make contact with your 401k provider, you can leave it where it is, as long as it's more than $7,000 now. So you don't have to leave it. The cool thing about that is you have that, what we call ERISA protection, right? So the folks who are the fiduciaries of the organization have an obligation to make sure that, you know, your money is being managed to the best interest of participants. And that's a pretty strong thing, you know. So you're not going to have people coming in trying to sell you things that really aren't going to be good for you, right?
Okay.
Yeah. However, your investment options could be, I'm just going to go right out and said it, most definitely are severely limited, right? So you're limited to the investments that the fiduciaries and the plan advisor select to be in the plan, unless you have what we call a self-directed brokerage account. That's a horse of a different color.
Okay.
Real briefly, that's where you can put a brokerage account inside your 401k plan specifically for you, and you can invest in anything that the market can handle. But for most of us regular people, the money can stay there in the plan, or we can roll it into an IRA. Just like if you were going to leave the company, you could roll those assets into an IRA. Well, actually, you are leaving the company if you're going to get deported.
Kind of.
Sort of. So you can roll it into an IRA. And that's a great idea for a lot of folks, because then they have all kinds of things they can invest in. And, you know, there's no tax liability there. Right?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, there's no tax liability.
Now they can do that outside of okay. So if they're deported to another country or back to their home country, then they can do that from there, right?
Sure. All you have to do is call up.
Right. But however, a lot of them are being detained in a detention center in another country.
Yes.
So what happens there?
So if you're in a detention center in another country, you have to wait till you get out of there. So the rules apply after you get out. But remember, as long as you have more than $7,000, that money is there. It's going to stay there. It's going to stay invested. It's going to keep growing. All things being equal, and we have a decent stock market, is going to keep growing. And so the most important thing is you don't lose your money, right? So can you access it while you're in a detention center? Well, to be honest with you, I've never really been in a detention center, so I sincerely doubt it. But once you get out of that detention center, um, you can access your money. And, we can skip on down to number 5, which I wasn't going to talk about till then, but let me just mix up the order and stick that in right here. That's why number 5 is so important, which is make sure you update your address, right? So if you're in the detention center for a number of years, let's say, and you've left the organization, of course, because you've been deported, or you decide to retire, let's say that, the 401k group is going to try to send you mail. So if that mail comes back, then they're going to say, oh, we can't send this person mail, and we don't want to keep sending the mail, because if we do, there's some there's some private information in there about that person. And so we don't want to have that flying about, right? And so they will hang on to your money. And I think we had the situation before where they hung on to the money for a long time, and then eventually they just gave it to a state organization to just hang on to, right? So the thing that you want to remember is that if you're being held in a detention center, or if you have to leave the country because you want to live someplace else and retire, you still have that money. You can still access that money once you have a telephone and can connect with the company that you're with. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you keep your address updated, right? Because they're going to send mail to make sure that they're going to send statements. They're going to send mail talking about proxy voting. They're going to send all kinds of stuff. And if that stuff comes back undeliverable, now they don't think you're there, and they're not going to send that kind of mail. And that's when you don't lose the money, but it may go to some state organization, or they may just hold on to it for a while, right? And the problem with holding on to it for a while is most organizations here in the U.S., they operate on Social Security numbers. So most financial organizations. So if you forget your Social Security number, then you're in a world of horror trying to get that money out, because they can't find you, right? Wow. So make sure you have that, and then I would say make sure you connect with a financial advisor. That's actually number 4, to help you through the process. Someone who is learned about, and this is going to make you upset. Someone who's learned about the tax situation in your country that you happen to be in. Right. So the U.S. has, for now, tax treaties with most countries on the planet. So if you should happen to receive funds from your 401k plan and you put them in your hot little hand there in that country, well, number one, there's tax liability here, because let's say you're not 59 and a half. So you have tax liability, and because you're not 59 and a half, you have a penalty, right? So the penalty is going to be 10%. There's another 20% that is typically withheld as a down payment on your taxes. Well, if you live in some other place, I got to say a particular country because I don't want to do that, but if you live in another country, that more than likely that country has a tax treaty with the U.S. And so you may be able to avoid the U.S. taxes paying taxes there at that company. Right? So, yeah. So if you go to a country that's relatively poor, maybe they don't have a big tax liability. Maybe. Could be better. So you want to talk with a financial advisor and a CPA that are used to working with that particular country's tax treaty here with the U.S. And that can make things great. So just remember that if you have to go back to your home country or decide you're going to retire someplace else, get yourself a good CPA that's used to dealing with that, and you'll be able to find them. The last thing that I would suggest, and I hope people don't have to do it, but the last thing I suggest is I'm not even going to suggest it, but you got to do what you got to do. Is you could do a cash out. You could say, look, give me my money. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not 59 and a half, you automatically have a 10% penalty. You're going to get that 20% taken out. And depending on what your income is, you're going to get taxed on that. So let's say that you made $50,000 that year before you decided to retire and go, you know, hang out with the birds in the Galapagos Islands. So that's some of my passions. And so then you're hanging out with the birds and you decide, oh, I need to start, I think I'm going to move here and, you know, just build my life here. Great. Okay. You cash out. I forgot where I was. You cash out, you pay those taxes, but remember, you've made $50,000 that year. And let's say that your 401k plan is $800,000. Now you just added $800,000 plus income. I'm sorry, $800,000 of income plus the $50,000 that you already made. You're going to be taxed at that $850,000 level. Not good. Not good. So the deal is, in most situations, roll those assets into an IRA so that you don't have to pay taxes on that money. It's a non-taxable event.
So let me ask this question. So their wives are the beneficiary, right?
Yep, of the 401k. Usually.
Of the 401k,
let's call it their spouse.
Their spouse. Yeah. Their spouse. So if by some means they don't survive this, then the spouse, who may possibly be still in the United States, could then be the one to manage the 401k. Or how does that work?
Great questions, I believe. So what you're saying is, I've been deported. And I no longer have access to a phone. I can't handle the money. Can my wife, as a beneficiary, claim those assets and start managing the monies for me? And the answer is no.
Ooh.
Yeah. Because until you determine that I'm dead, which you may not be able to do, you aren't going to get the money as a spouse, right? Once you determine that I've passed away, now you can claim yourself as the beneficiary, and you go through those normal channels, right? You connect with the company that they worked for. They'll ask you for a death certificate. They'll verify that you're the spouse. You have a certain amount of time between which you can liquidate the assets. Right? So, but that person has to be dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in that case, I'm all about everybody being intentional about everything they do.
Yes.
And so since you have no clue when that moment is going to take place, then people need to start getting their affairs in order just in case.
I definitely would. I definitely would get what I euphemistically call the book ready. And I would definitely sit down with your spouse and let that person know, this is where all the accounts are. These are not that you want them to create fraud, but this is where the accounts are. These are the passwords. This is my name / information. So that just in case they need to access those assets as you, I can't believe I'm saying this on TV or on this thing, but if they need to access those assets as you, they need to have all of that information. That's going to be nice.
Yeah. So they need to.
Not knowing if you're dead or not is a problem.
Right. Exactly. And so, and make sure that their wills and trusts are in place and whatever, and all instructions. Because right now you just don't know. I think there was a woman yesterday, I think 75 years old, been in this country for about a couple of decades, and she passed away yesterday in detention, in detention because the conditions are really horrific.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously, people need to take precautions and, as they say, get their affairs in order. Right now, it's kind of, they're running, everybody's running scared right now. So it's hard to think of all the pieces that you need to put together in the event of, which is extremely sad. But yeah,
It
they need to,
is.
yeah, because
It
some of them
really
have
is.
young children. A
Mhm.
lot of these people now had been, they were almost finished with the process. So they had Social Security numbers. They were, just seconds from becoming a citizen. They were just going it with getting their final paperwork, and some of them just didn't make it for whatever the reason is. Some error took place in the early part of this process, and now they're being penalized for that.
It's a very wise word and a very a telling and important story. I think I sent the message to you, but I even myself was worried about being deported, even though I am an American citizen. And so I keep a copy of my declaration page for my passport on my phone so that I can prove that I'm a U.S. citizen. That I'm not so sure nowadays that that's going to be enough, right? So I too have to make sure that my affairs are in order and taken care of. And I would say that now is the time. I mean, the time is not when you see one of your neighbors or one of your friends um, get into a particular issue. The time is now. And there are lots of organizations that have these kinds of books that you can um, put together and uh, logs that you can make out and tons of attorneys that will help you. So um, I would say that for most of us who are here in the country, we're losing time on the situation. We can say, I didn't know what to do. Um, Now you know. Now you should know, even if this is the last straw that you're watching, now you should know that the 401k that you're contributing to, the bank accounts that you have, the life insurance that you have everything that pertains to you as a financial person should be written down someplace so that your spouse can access it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also understand, I would say, that if you do get deported, you're not dead, right? You're not dead just because you don't happen to live in the country. So that's going to pose some problems with regard to accessing those funds. And so I would definitely talk with an attorney and a CPA about how do I cross that hurdle, or how does my spouse cross that hurdle. You need to have a plan. And I would get one. Serious as a heart attack, I would get a plan.
Yeah, they definitely do, because that also includes when, because the spouse, the life insurance and all those things. I mean, a lot of them, they were reviving citizens. They've been given whatever permission they had been given in most cases. The ones that have assets here have definitely were living here in a legal position.
Mm-hmm.
But they're beyond that right now. So that means that puts the spouses in a precarious situation, because they're not dead, so therefore they can't get access to life insurance policies. If they're not on bank accounts, they're not. They don't have access to what monies he has. And I wonder, and I guess this is a conversation that hadn't been had, since they have all of these individuals' information, which they do. Have they confiscated their bank accounts?
Oh, wow. I would say they have not. I
We
would
would
think
hope
they have.
not.
Yeah.
We would hope not.
And the only reason I would say that is there's no jurisdiction to do that. I mean, there's no, I don't see a way to make that happen, because it's not the IRS that's coming after you. It's like the police, it's like a law enforcement thing.
Yeah, because they might think that, hey, you illegal, they're deeming you illegal, so we gotta take back money of that which we think you got, whatever it is. I mean, they're not operating with rational, critical thinking skills here. They're operating out of some crazy emotional things, so they're not really thinking like rational human beings like you and I.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a really good point. And to be honest with you, I'd have to research that, and I will, to see what happens. I sincerely doubt that your 401k would be accessed by the federal government. Now, let's say you're of a small business. We have to talk about this.
Mhm.
And that small business has
Highlighters is the
large
House
amounts of
Labs.
assets.
Right.
I could see an issue there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's so much to unfold here, but I think that all of us, now that you said that, this conversation is a good conversation to have, because I'm going to a town hall meeting tomorrow, and for my community, our community, and we wanting them to be more very intentional in understanding what is happening, because we could truly be next, and that means all of our people need to be getting their things in order, as well, and their children, especially with the birthright citizenship stuff that is sitting on the table right now, very exposed. I think there's a junction on it right now, but in this particular administration, junctions mean absolutely nothing. So
Mm-hmm.
we're in a lawless land right now, and so but that's people that have lived in this country for decades, and I know they have assets. And so everybody needs to be very proactive, checking on what's there, going to your Social Security and Medicare to make sure whatever's supposed to be there is still there, um, and access to your Medicare and your Social Security, that your account hasn't been wiped clean, because I hear those are things that are happening as well. And you have no way of proving it,
Right.
because it's no longer in the system, period. So how can you prove something that doesn't exist? And so, yeah, so I think that's just some precautionary tales, for people to make sure that everything that you've taken all that into consideration, just in the event of, not to say it's going to happen, but in the event of.
Yes, I think we have the opportunity now to at least warn people of what's going on, and I think we want to be mindful of the environment that we live in. And I would say, if anyone says to you, "Oh, you're this," don't worry. Start worrying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think so as well,
yeah.
because there's some things that just not kosherly working well for everybody. But good
Mhm.
conversation, and I think people just need to don't take it for granted that it can't happen. Take it for granted that it's a possibility that it can. And so in that case, then you need to make sure that you have everything in place.
Yeah. So let me just do a quick review here, and then
Mm-hmm.
if you'd like, I can give you the last word. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so when we're talking about someone leaving the country, um, voluntarily, or is that me, or is that you?
No, no, that was my phone was trying to ring.
I see.
Okay.
Um, so if someone leaves the country on voluntarily, or if they leave involuntarily, five things they want to be aware of. Number one, the money that's in their company sponsored retirement plan, 401k, 403b, 457, it's still theirs. Can't be taken away from them.
Okay.
Number two, they can, if they happen to leave that organization, which they will because they're either retired or leaving or what have you, then
Mm-hmm.
The person has three basic options. One, they can roll it into a new 401k if they happen to work for another organization here. If that sort of works out, you can roll it into your new company's 401k if that can happen. Number two, they can roll the assets into an IRA. And number three, if they have more than $7,000, they can leave it where it is. The beauty of those three scenarios, no tax liability.
Okay.
Okay. Number three, and this is something I do not suggest. I'm just going to say that right now. I do not suggest, but number three is they could cash out. Now, the problem with cashing out is now you're going to be taxed on all of that money at one time. And that's, for some of us, that could be grim, right? You've added X amount of dollars to your level of income. Not good. And then if you do decide to roll the assets into, or to cash out, or to roll the assets into another bank, or if you do decide to do something like that, then you definitely want to talk with some type of CPA person that's familiar with that country's tax laws. See if there's a treaty, so that if you take the monies out, you can be under that tax regime rather than the one here in the US. That might be a better thing for you. Last but not least, please keep your address updated. Right? If you have a 401k out there, make sure that you keep your address updated and that you're checking that mail, because if you don't, eventually the company's going to stop sending you mail, and that's the first step to, we don't know who this person is, we're just going to hang on to this money until they claim it, and then you got to prove who you are.
Okay.
Which can be tough.
Okay.
I guess the last corollary I would say to that, if you happen to be the spouse of someone who is deported or someone who is retired and they're not dead, you can't get access to the 401k. They got to be dead.
They got to be dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I mean, just things that one would not think about. You're just going by regular life, and then all of a sudden life has just been turned upside down. And so on a norm, we know that people don't completely understand their retirement plans and things of that nature. That's just normal, right? And now and spouses that, the husband or the wife were the ones that were caring for this aspect. Now that person's not there any longer. Pretty intense, I would say.
Could be.
Yeah, very, very intense right now. But but being intentional is a lot better than just sitting and waiting.
Just sitting what now?
Sitting and waiting.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah. So that's all I can say.
Okay. Well, great. Well, it has been great talking with you. I will read your bio once more, and then we'll sign off. How's that?
All right. Sounds good.
Everyone, it has been great talking with you about this incredible issue, and that is of leaving the country, and what do you do with your 401k when that happens. I'm Jevon Thomas. I'm a retirement plan advisor. I've been doing this for about 20 years or so. My friend and colleague is Crystal Mitchell, and here's some of who she is. She's a business coach and consultant. She's the CEO of Mitchell Business Solutions, co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, the co-host of The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. That's another weekly online radio show that you should check out. She's an instructor at Mount San Antonio Community College, a qualified network for teaching entrepreneurship instructor, and a QuickBooks Pro Advisor financial strategist. It has been our honor and great pleasure chatting with you folks. Please come back and see us next week when we have another scintillating talking point about your 401k. See you next week, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great one. Be safe out there.